Gordon Johncock at Atlanta, Teo Fabi at Pocono, Tom Sneva at Indianapolis and Milwaukee, Al Unser at Cleveland, Bobby Rahal at Riverside, and John Paul Jr. at Michigan. Rahal is the most recent winner on the road course at Riverside, and he broke the track record here this weekend and will be starting from the pole position in today's Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course near Lexington, Ohio. Escort Radar Warning 200 is brought to you by Michelob. Some things speak for themselves. And for the Ask For Motor Oil, Pennzoil, protection worth asking for. And by Pontiac. Test drive a new Pontiac at your Pontiac dealer, because at Pontiac, we build excitement. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course near Lexington, Ohio, a 2.4-mile, 15-turn road course. A lot of race fans on hand here today. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins, along with Larry Nuber, set to bring you the activity here this afternoon. Well, as we mentioned, this is the 9th race out of 13 that will make up the PPG IndyCar World Series for this year. We've had 7 different winners, but a couple of drivers who probably will be in victory lane that haven't been so far.
By this time of the season, I think everybody expected Rick Mears to have won at least once, and there's another guy, Al Unser Jr., who seems to be able to go fast no matter what kind of car he races. He's been so close so many times, and we all think he's going to be there pretty soon, too.
You take a look at the top 9 starters in today's race, and you find a lot of road racing veterans.
A lot of road racing veterans and a lot of names that a year ago weren't even thought of as IndyCar drivers. Names like Ganassi, Neifel, Daly, but they're up top here this weekend at Mid-Ohio.
A driver who will not be partaking in today's race. Fortunately, he'll be with us in the broadcast booth. Gordon Johncock, who has won a couple of races on road courses. They're quite different from running the ovals, aren't they, Gordy?
Well, yes, they are, Bob. And the problem with veterans like myself right now, you know, we were brought up on oval tracks. And so many of these new guys like Al Unser and the rest of Derek Daly and Bobby Rahal, they've been brought up on the road courses. They went to the Skip Barber Racing School, and they've learned a lot from that. And they've had a couple of years experience now, and it's really tough to beat them on a road course.
We look forward for your comments during today's race. And as per usual, covering the pit area for us today, Gary Lee.
The teams have set their strategy, but right now that strategy becomes a question mark because of the overcast conditions. There is a threat of rain, reports of rain heading this direction from the west. This, however, is a road race, so rain or shine, we will race because of these Goodyear Eagle rain tires. Once again, the groove to diffuse the water off and allow these cars to stay on the racing surface. Now, if it rains, it should be a great enhancement for the effort of a Bobby Rahal, a Derek Daly, or even a Teo Fabi. They all three go great in the rain. Bob?
We'll be back to take an in-depth look at this 2.4-mile road course after these messages. Let's get ready for the start of today's race here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course near Lexington, Ohio. And this is a very challenging road course, 2.4 miles in length. There are 15 turns, 9 right-handers and 6 left-hand turns. And to familiarize you a little bit more with the actual layout of the track, start-finish line is located in the middle of a short straightaway. The areas to look out for: a sharp right-hander called the keyhole, the back stretch where speeds reach near 150 miles an hour, Madness, which is a series of S's, the chute, a short straightaway, and the carousel that leads them back to the start-finish line. Here's a point of view of this racetrack, Larry Nuber and Bobby Rahal.
They say this is your home course, Bobby Rahal. Let's take a lap.
Okay, let's go. Coming down the front straight, really all we're doing is preparing for the first corner, which is a third gear corner. Very fast. We must stay to the inside as much as possible because the track drops off and the car wants to slide out into the grass.
Coming up next, Bobby, is really the slowest point on the racetrack. What's the key here?
Well, first of all, we're coming from maybe 150 miles an hour down to, say, 80 or so, at least initially. It's very, very tricky through here. The car's sliding quite a bit. And as we come around this left-hander, we're setting up for probably, as you say, the slowest part, which is second gear and maybe somewhere around 50 miles an hour at the most.
They call this the keyhole, and when you come out of here, a weird thing happens, doesn't it?
Well, it does. There's really two types of pavement, as you can see there, and and the car wants to slide on that more so, and then of course on the exit the track falls away a little bit and the back end wants to go off into the grass, so it's tricky.
And now you get to sit back and relax and go 180 miles an hour.
That's right. Now we get to go up through the gears, and if there's anywhere to relax, it's this place at Mid-Ohio.
Now, coming up are a series of corners where we have seen the most incidents during practice this week.
Right, this section coming up is the key to Mid-Ohio, I think. We're coming down, and this is a second gear corner, but still quite fast. Coming through here, staying to the right as much as we can because we want to prepare ourselves for this up and over a hill left-handed. That's very tricky.
That must be fun.
Oh, that's my favorite corner. Accelerating hard down into a sharp right-hand corner, braking hard, and then accelerating again very hard up second gear and then third gear up through probably the wildest corner on the whole track.
And then you have another straightaway coming up soon. Now, you know what kind of lap you had up to now. Can you make up time here?
Generally, this corner coming up right here, which leads onto the straight, you can make some time, but you can also get in a lot of trouble here pretty easily. So we try to be somewhat conservative, but at the same time as quick as we can be. And then, of course, as you say, we're probably up around 150 miles an hour, and this is a very rough section of the track, so you're being bounced around quite a bit.
Coming into Carousel, if you're battling with somebody coming down for the checkered, can you pass in this final corner?
Well, you probably could, but I think there'd only be one of you left. It's one of those corners that is 2 cars wide, but if the guy ahead of you doesn't want you to pass him, he can make it awfully difficult.
And then coming home and taking the checker flag, is that correct?
Well, we certainly hope so, and this is when you come by here on every lap, you know you've done something.
26 other drivers besides Bobby hope they'll cross the start-finish line first at the end of 84 laps today. We'll be back with the starting lineup for today's event in just a moment. Nice sunshiny day, but it is clouded over in the last hour or two. We have 77 degrees, a 10 to 15 mile-an-hour wind from the northwest, and the chance of rain is listed at 30%. However, they're having a few raindrops fallen over this track in the last couple of hours. Now let's look at the starting lineup for today's Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. On the pole from Dublin, Ohio, qualifying at 106.189 miles an hour, a new record in the Red Roofs Inn March Chevrolet, Bobby Rahal. Outside, Teo Fabi, car number 33, Teo from Milan, Italy, in the Skoal Bandit, March Cosworth. In the second row, John Paul Jr., car number 12, he's from Lawrenceville, Georgia, in the BDS Associates Penske Cosworth. Alongside Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, car 3, the Newman Haas Budweiser Cosworth Lola. In the third row, Derek Daly in car number 90 in the Provini Veal March, car number 90, and alongside will be Al Unser Jr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, car number 17 in the Coors Light Silver Bullet Eagle Cosworth. Row number 4, car 60, Chip Ganassi from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the Sea Ray Boats Wildcat Cosworth, and Chris Neifel from Riverwoods, Illinois, car number 72, the CFI Primus Cosworth. Row number 5, car 66 from Lafayette, Indiana, Pete Halsmer in the Arciero Racing Penske Cosworth, and alongside car number 7, driven by Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Hertz Penske Cosworth. In row number 6, his teammate, defending national champion car 1, Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California, the Pennzoil Penske Cosworth, and number 20, Danny Ngayes from Santa Ana, California, in the STP Oil Treatment March Cosworth. Row number 7, car number 30, Howdy Holmes from Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the Domino's Pizza Hot One March Cosworth. And outside of that row, car 55, Jose Legarza from Mexico City, and the Spa Lady Machinist Union Penske Cosworth. In the 8th row, Kevin Kogan from Redondo Beach, California, in the Master Mechanic Caesar Palace Theodore Cosworth. And car number 34, Desiree Wilson from Forest Hills, New York, in the Weissard Motors March Cosworth. The rest of the starting lineup, Tom Sneva in car number 5 in the 9th row, and alongside Roger Mears in car number 9. The 10th row, Pancho Carter and Tony Bettenhausen. Row number 11, Chip Meade and Bill Alsop. 12th row, Dick Simon and Bill Tempero. In row number 13, car 65, Bill Kruger, and 64, Greg Leffler. And all alone in row number 14, Herm Johnson in car number 28. Now, because of the fact that the straightaway here in front of us at the start-finish line is so short, and there could be a problem with the start of the race, they have decided to start this race in the backstretch, and we're about ready to go green.
The green flag is flying. I think this race is underway. Now, we were told, of course, depending upon conditions, this race could start either under green or yellow. Right now, we have no rain. We are underway and a bright green flag.
And Bobby Rahal has jumped into the lead at the drop of the green flag in the backstretch. He moves through the series of S's. Teo Fabi is following him. Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio, the winner of the most recent IndyCar race at Riverside, California on the road course, and this is pretty much his home course. The owner of the car, Jim Truman, also owns this racetrack. So Bobby Rahal certainly listed as one of the favorites in today's event.
The white powder that you see picking up that looks a little bit like dirt, maybe a little bit like smoke, is actually lime that has been put on this racetrack to help cure it. It was repaved earlier this season. And Gordy, is that lime slippery?
Well, no, it would kind of dry into the track and make the track a little more stable than it is. They've had a problem with the asphalt breaking up.
They come by us for the first time here on the main straightaway, and Bobby Rahal continues to show the way with Teo Fabi following. Now Bobby Rahal is moving through what is called the chicane, a series of S-turns before moving uphill to the area called the keyhole. This is one of the tightest turns on this race course and one of the slowest and most dangerous. After coming out of the keyhole, Bobby Rahal on the accelerator down the long 3,000-foot backstretch. Battle for third position going on as Rahal and Teo Fabi are running in first and second position. And as they come into view down the backstretch, we've got Mario Andretti right now in third with John Paul Jr. running fourth.
Well, Andretti, of course, had the pole the first two times the Indy cars ran on road courses this year. He's been unseated the last two races. And there's that young new driver. Shouldn't call him a new driver. He's new to Indianapolis type racing, John Paul Jr. Both of these guys have a win already this year. The old guard leading the new guard.
John Paul Jr., of course, the winner at the Michigan 500 in a dramatic finish with Rick Mears. Rick spinning and hitting the wall and damaging his race car on the final lap of that Michigan 500, and John Paul Jr. going on to win. Mario Andretti here running in third position right now. You will notice throughout the day the cars will get slightly off the racetrack and kick up a little bit of dust, but that will prove to be no problem for the other competitors. By us again for lap number 2. Again, this is an 84-lap race. Actually, they'll be going 200.5 miles this afternoon in the Escort Radar Warning 200.
Well, we've had a report from observers that Howdy Holmes and Phil Kruger touched momentarily, although each of them have continued on their way. If that is the case, apparently Howdy Holmes has slowed somewhere because Howdy started way up in the middle of the pack and Phil Kruger near the back.
Continuing to watch this race for third place, Mario Andretti in third right now. Right behind him, John Paul Jr. as the cars once again run down the backstretch here at Mid-Ohio. Speeds reaching 150 miles an hour or more. The average speed of qualifying here around 106 miles an hour. The speeds varied from 106 turned in by Bobby Rahal to the slowest qualifier, which was Greg Leffler at 93.879.
We're watching Mario Andretti currently running in third position, still holding on to fourth is John Paul. Gordy, with the threat of rain, if you were a driver, where would your head be right now?
Well, definitely the crew keeps track of that, really. And, you know, if it comes a real bad rain, they will stop it, and then they will probably change tires and go on. But, you know, the track really looks awful dirty today. There's been a few of them getting off here, but the track looks really dirty, and it's taken them a few laps to really get it cleaned up.
We were over in the series of S's called Madness for practice and qualifying yesterday, and several of the drivers were having problems over there. That's one of the areas where the track has been newly paved, and it was beginning to break up just a little bit and giving them some problems. They go through turn number 1 here down the stretch leading to the chicane. Mario Andretti running in third position with John Paul Jr. in fourth. Running fifth is Al Unser Jr. and in sixth place is car number 90 driven by Derek Daly. The leader continues to be Bobby Rahal, and in second position Teo Fabi.
You saw the graphic a couple of seconds ago. Mario Andretti among the active drivers, the most winning driver on the road courses. Again, Andretti and Paul are running third and fourth here at Mid-Ohio in the early stages of this race.
Well, speeds will vary here from just about 30 or 40 miles an hour up to 150 miles an hour or more. Some of the Mario Andretti and John Paul Jr. here running through one of the slowest areas of the track right now, the series of S's.
One reason I think, you know, Larry, that you see Mario running up front in road courses all the time. You know, Mario's done a lot of years of Formula One racing, and this is all that he's done for a long time. And Mario really knows his way around a road course a lot better than anybody else here.
We go back up front to check on the progress of Bobby Rahal, who crosses the start-finish line and completes another lap. His lead on second place, Teo Fabi, still about what it was, right around 1.5 seconds. Now Bobby Rahal beginning to move up on some of the slower cars as Chris Neifel has apparently run into a problem, going very slowly on the racetrack. I don't know whether he's spun or whether he's having engine problems. It looks like he may have spun because he's getting back up to speed. And a car off the course here is car number 65. That, of course, is Bill Kruger from Santa Monica, California. So a couple of drivers off the course here in the keyhole.
You can see one of the real hazards on a road course. Once a driver does make an off-course excursion, a lot of dust kicks up and that cloud lingers for 2 or 3 seconds there, and the drivers have no idea what is on the other side of that cloud of dust. The car getting off course was Kruger. That's at least his second incident that he's been involved in here early on.
And we have completed 4 laps, and right now the leader is Bobby Rahal. Running in second position, Teo Fabi. Third is Mario Andretti. Fourth, John Paul Jr. And fifth is Al Unser Jr. We'll be back in a moment. He's Bobby Rahal in the Red Roofs in March Chevrolet, followed by Teo Fabi, John Paul Jr., Mario Andretti, and Al Unser Jr. We've completed 5 laps, and while we were away, John Paul Jr. did indeed pass Mario Andretti for third place.
We saw Chris Neifel a few moments ago. We understand that the observers around the track reported that Chris simply missed a shift. That's why he was going so slowly. Bobby Rahal, there you see him on the screen, right now is turning in, I think, the scenario that most of the other teams really feared, and that is him taking off early and maybe burying the rest of the field.
Pete Halsmer from Lafayette, Indiana, who started this race in 9th position, a veteran road racer, a former Super V Formula racer, has stalled on the course in the area known as the Chute, the short straightaway leading to the carousel, so he's getting a tow from the championship auto racing team officials. Meanwhile, the leader, Bobby Rahal, continuing to negotiate these turns here at Mid-Ohio. He has 2 victories on road courses in championship auto racing teams competition at Riverside, California. And of course, a victory also on the oval at Michigan International Speedway just about a year ago.
Gordy, you know, we saw a shot a couple of seconds ago with a tow vehicle, a wrecker, on the course. This is a relatively narrow course as road courses go. As a driver, what kind of feelings? What goes through your head when you see those flashing lights?
Well, Larry, it's something I really don't like and I don't really agree with, because it takes one slip for a car. You know, our championship cars are so low, like right now you can see them coming through turn 14, 15 here. But our cars are so low, one little slip, you know, and we could go under that pace truck and get hurt pretty easy. And it's something that I myself don't really agree with, having a safety tow vehicle on the track when you're under green.
Is there an alternative?
Well, I don't know what the answer would be. I guess you just leave the guy there or let you go a complete yellow.
Here's Chip Ganassi, who is also stalled on the racetrack. Chip Ganassi started this race in 7th position in the Sea Ray Boats Wildcat Cosworth, qualifying at 103 miles an hour, and he is stalled there at the end of the S's just before the cars go uphill, turn number 8. On the racetrack, it is the Penske cars of Al Unser Sr. now running in 7th position, and his teammate Rick Mears also running in the top 10 at this time. There's one of those safety vehicles on the course getting back to its position. Al Unser Sr., car number 7, the leader in point standings this point in the season in the CART PPG IndyCar World Series standings. He has 5 wins on the road courses.
I think one of the best races that we've got going on right now is Mario and Al Unser Jr. I think that's one we should be watching, because Al Unser Jr. is charging Mario every lap here, trying to get by him, and I think that's one of your better runs right now.
That would be the race for 3rd position, as the leader continues to be Bobby Rahal. Teo Fabi running in 2nd position. There's Derek Daly in car number 90. This is the team car to Tony Benthausen, and there is John Paul Jr., who is running in 3rd position, and the battle there for 4th place right behind him. John Paul Jr., car number 12.
I think he surprised a few of the IndyCar veteran observers. You know, a lot of people have been watching John Paul on the road courses the past couple of seasons. felt that he was ready for anything, and that includes Formula One. But an interesting thing happened. There were some people down in Texas who were observing this young man as he was improving himself in his racing career, and they nominated him for this ride. A fellow by the name of Frank Weiss, who was involved with Jim Hall and Chaparral Racing quite a number of years, put together this team that includes John Paul Jr. and Count Rudy van der Straat from Belgium. And they collected this team, they put it together, and they've been very successful.
And this is the race that Gordy was talking about just a few seconds ago. Mario Andretti in 4th place, being pursued by Al Unser Jr. in 5th.
You'll find one little slip here or something if Mario comes up behind a slow car and really doesn't get around him quick, that Al Unser Jr. will slip by him very quickly.
Into the chicane area of the racetrack. Mario Andretti trying to get to the inside of one of the slower cars.
Here they are,
right to the inside.
He made it by that time, but that was close right there. Al Unser had a good shot at him right there, but wasn't quite able to make it on account of the slow car, and he just wasn't in the right place. Here we are again right here. See, Mario's behind the slow car, and there's Al Unser Jr. right beside of him now, but he didn't quite make it again.
Some dicing going on here. You can see that Mario Andretti and Al Unser Jr. are very quickly approaching the 3rd place car, driven by John Paul Jr.
You realize, Gordy, that when Mario Andretti started his Indianapolis career, it was about the same time that Al Unser Jr. was born, and now here they are doing battle.
And now, I don't know what you're talking about here now, but you know, it's me. I started my career about the same time that Mario did too, so got to watch it.
Mario Andretti, a former world driving champion, winner of the 500-mile race in 1969. We asked him about the track conditions here at Mid-Ohio.
Where's the hot place here at Mid-Ohio?
I haven't found it. Quite honestly, I haven't. This place is almost impossible to pass. Much slower car can hold you back very, very easily, and it's going to be very interesting to see how we get by during the race.
Well, he just lost a position as Al Unser Jr. was able to sneak by there on the backstretch.
He does. Al Unser Jr. just got under Mario going down the long back straightaway. If you can get underneath a guy and you stay off your brake, can stay on your throttle just 1 instant longer than he does, you slide right underneath him, and he has no choice. He has to back off and let you underneath him.
Situation regarding Pete Halsmer, who we saw stalled on the racetrack just a few minutes ago, updated by Gary Lee.
But we can reiterate that Pete lost power on the backside of the course, requesting a tow, and the car was towed in. There may be a problem with the gearbox. The car is up on the pneumatic jacks right now. The crew continues to work under the rear of the car. At this point, it's still a question mark as to the problem with car 66.
The drive line, originally a U-joint, was the first report that came over cart radios. Pete, of course, was towed in, but apparently the team is thinking maybe it is something that they can repair rather.
Continue to watch Mario Andretti, who is running in 5th position now. He's right behind Herm Johnson in car number 28. This car that Johnson is driving was originally qualified this weekend by Gary Bettenhausen, but Gary decided to do some oval track racing on the dirt back in Indiana and decided to pass up this IndyCar race here this afternoon, so Herm Johnson has taken over the cockpit.
And a wise decision it was, as we see Dick Simon spinning right in front of one of our first 3 cars. Simon, who had that horrendous crash at Riverside a year ago, also crashed on our most recent ESPN broadcast, getting out of shape right in front of the leaders. There's another one of those tow vehicles on the speedway, and of course the corner worker signaling to Bobby Rahal coming through to be careful, there's something on the course. We'll come back to that Gary Bettenhausen story a little later.
And the interval between first position Bobby Rahal and second place Teo Fabi is now 4.5 seconds. Third is John Paul Jr., fourth Al Unser Jr., and fifth Mario Andretti. Teo Fabi, car 33, and John Paul Jr., car number 12. Good race. They have just moved out of the keyhole and are racing down the backstretch now. John Paul Jr. moving to the inside of Teo Fabi at the end of the backstretch, headed for turn number 5, and John Paul Jr. picks up the position and moves into second place.
The exact same move that we saw Al Unser Jr. use on Mario Andretti. And Gordon, you know, you go down that long backstretch, the fastest place on this course, you're entering a series of S-turns, and the first one's relatively sharp considering the speed you just came out of.
Yes, it is. It's a real sharp right-hand corner, and you've got to watch what you're doing and know where the shutoff point is. But like I said, when they both got past right there, if you can just stay on the throttle just an instant longer than the other guy, you slip up beside him, he has no choice. He has to let you go on.
For John Paul Jr., a very successful racing season so far. He did not compete in the only other IndyCar race that was run here. That was back in 1980. His best finish in 4 career IndyCar road course starts was 3rd in this year's Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500-kilometer race at Riverside that we telecast live for you on ESPN just a couple of weeks ago. He is 6th in the point standings so far this year. John Paul Jr.
Mario Andretti seems to be losing quite a lot of ground. I don't know. It looks like he's having a handling problem. His car looks like it's set up awful stiff. I know when he comes through 14 and 15 here and comes down the front straightaway, you watch his car, and it looks like it's doing a lot of bounding around.
Well, Mario Andretti, of course, is running in 5th place right now. John Paul Jr. here is running 2nd, trying to catch up with the leader of the event, Bobby Rahal. Rahal took over the lead at the drop of the green flag and has held the lead ever since. And in the pit area with Gary Lee, here is Chip Ganassi.
Indeed, one of the young Lions that had a great up-front start, but you're out so early. What happened?
Well, Gary, you know, we were just right behind Al, giving him a real run for it. I was going to go by him the next lap, I think, and the gearbox quit again on us, just like at Elkhart Lake.
The Patrick team has had so many problems this year, but you've been the shining light. You've been out there running when the veterans have been on the sideline.
Yeah, I just hope it's all worth something for next year, you know, because I've had such a rough year this year that I just set my sights on next year by now almost. We got a lot of racing to do this year, and I'm going to do well, I know, and but it's just real hard to think about these type of things when you just have a dismal day like today.
Smiling through the disappointment, Chip Ganassi.
Chip Ganassi's best finish in a road course race was at the Budweiser Cleveland 500 back in 1982, where he was 11th. Here is Mario Andretti that Gordy mentioned maybe having a handling problem. Gordy, or rather Mario, running in 5th place right now.
Now, you just watch him right there when he just made that right-hand turn, how the rear of the car just jumped to the left. It just looked like he's set up too tight. The car is too stiff.
Well, Rick Mears, the defending national champion, one of those who has not won so far this year. Rick Mears, driving car number 1, started this race here this afternoon in 11th position. Rick, of course, from Bakersfield, California, and Al Unser Sr. also is right ahead of his teammate.
You saw the 2 Penske cars, and by the way, Chip Ganassi has parked the only Wildcat that was in this race. As we look at the Penske cars, understand that these are basically last year's cars. The Penske people have gone to the PC-10, or the 1982 design, having parked for the first time officially this season the new PC-11s. The 10s, they felt, simply gave them a better opportunity for success here in the latter parts of the season. The 10s have proven more reliable. When you compare this season's results to last year's, again, we're looking at Rick Mears. If you were with us back in 1980, Rick had this race locked up before he spun. And right behind Rick Mears, by the way, is a guy who came into this race today with a lot of optimism, Jose Lee Garza. Jose Lee was very strong at the Elkhart Lake road course race, and he was kind of hoping for rain. There's Jose Lee now trying to put some heat on Rick Mears.
And he dives to the inside, going through the chicane, and picks up the position. So now it is Jose Lee Garza in 8th position. Rick Mears drops to 9th, and in 10th place is Danny Angaius. But look who's running 11th right behind Danny Angaius.
Oh, Jose Lee.
Oh, and Garza slams the outside wall, nearly goes over. Jose Lee Garza in trouble after moving into 8th position with a nice move, but boy, that car took a hard shot there on the retaining wall.
Gordy, I saw something go up in the air. I don't know if he got off course or maybe something blew in the engine compartment.
Well, I didn't see it right at first, but he did get off the course, and then he slid to the guardrail, and when he hit the guardrail, it tipped him up sideways. He was lucky he didn't go on over.
He sure is. As you can see, Jose Lee has climbed out of that car now. It apparently is okay. We go back to action on the racetrack. Now Rick Mears goes back into 8th, Danny Angaius 9th, and Howdy Holmes in car number 30 moves into 10th place.
Well, when a guy goes around you in the previous corner and then he slides off in front of you, that has a tendency, I bet, to catch your attention a little bit. You know that?
Well, it definitely does. I think Jose, you know, he just ran just a little bit hard the first part of the race. He got a long ways to go here, you know, and I think maybe he could have picked his time and got by a little easier and not gotten himself in trouble.
Larry mentioned that the only wildcat in this race, driven by Chip Ganassi, is out. You normally think of that red and blue car there. You normally, first of all, think of it as being driven by Gordon Johncock, but you secondly think of it as a wildcat, but it is not a wildcat. It is a March, and it's being driven by Danny and Gaius. There's the defending national champion, Rick Mears, driver of car number 1, moving through the keyhole, setting up for the backstretch.
This race course here at Mid-Ohio is a very scenic course, and the fans really like coming here because there are rolling hills. It's heavily wooded, as you can see in that shot. As Howdy Holmes moves now to the inside of Danny Ongais, and boy, they almost touch. Holmes is off course momentarily. Ongais would not let him by. He closed the door. He slammed it shut on Howdy.
Well, Danny just would have no part of that whatsoever and hung right in there and prevented himself from losing a position, but some real tight racing there between Danny and Gaius and Howdy Holmes.
You can see right there, if you watch Rick Mears, Rick is really not handling to it. See his car weaving back and forth there compared to Danny behind him. Danny is running much smoother than Rick is right at the present time. Rick looks like he's having problems, but he's still able to hang in there. And, you know, that's a veteran like Rick Mears. He knows how to do it and stay in there.
We go up and check the race for second position. John Paul Jr., car number 12, followed closely by Al Unser Jr. This is the race for second position. The lead is still being held by Bobby Rahal. But Al Unser Jr. is beginning to show some muscle here. The cars move down the backstretch, and Al Unser Jr. looks for the inside. Meanwhile, we have one of the Penske cars into the pits.
You got Rick Mears there in the pits, and I think possibly had a left rear tire flat. That's what I was talking about. His car really wasn't looking well. He was all over the course, and I think you'll find that maybe he had a flat tire there. It looks very possible.
So the crew going to work on the Pennzoil Penske race car, and the tires are being changed on it. Of course, new fuel being put in also. Looks like they're having some trouble there on the right rear of the car, as the individual assigned to it is having a little bit of trouble getting it on.
Rahal has not come by yet. He is just, no, that's not Rahal. Bill Alsip is going down the start-finish line home stretch now. Rahal has just come out of the carousel, the final 15th corner, and now puts a lap on Rick Mears. And Rahal slowing noticeably that time as he came down the front stretch. I think it was just a matter of a slow shift as Bobby is once again back on the throttle, going up there, headed for the chicane, turn number 1.
Really, this best race is between John Paul Jr. and Al Unser Jr., and here they are moving through the chicane, headed uphill toward the keyhole. John Paul Jr. running in second place, and in third is Al Unser Jr. Running fourth is Teo Bobby, and in fifth place is Mario Andretti. Sixth is Derek Daly. In seventh position is the number 7 driven by Al Unser Sr.
There are the first 3 cars in this race. Bobby Rahal, first red car there right in the center of your screen. You can see how that difference between first, second, and third is tightened up. There is the second place car of John Paul Jr. now less than a car length behind the leader.
So either Bobby Rahal is slowing down or John Paul Jr. and Al Unser Jr. are closing in. In any case, it's a great 3-car battle for the lead at Mid-Ohio in the Escort Radar Warning 200-mile race for Indy cars.
Boy, it certainly, there he goes. He just lost the lead. He just got by him. John Paul just got by Bobby Rahal.
So now
Bobby must be having some problems of some kind because he slowed down tremendously compared to what he was doing at first.
We'll be watching to see if Al Unser Jr. can also pass him and move into second place. And Bobby Rahal is coming into the pit, so there is a problem with the Rahal car moving into the pit area to see if the crew can figure out what's going wrong. As far as pit stops are concerned, what are we looking at this afternoon in terms of number?
Well, on paper, they'll have to make at least 2 because of the fuel situation. We're going to go 200 miles. About the maximum anybody can expect to get out of a load is 80 miles. So any advantage that a team that would get excellent mileage is sort of negated by the excellent distance of this race. Rahal is getting back out. I think he's probably going to come back out in the top 10. He is on the same lap with the leader. It's possible now with, we've gone, let's see, about 19 laps. I don't know that he could make this. I don't think he could go the distance. No, he couldn't.
No, he certainly has to stop one more.
So So the lead now inherited by John Paul Jr. after that pit stop by Bobby Rahal.
That could have been a routine stop, Gordy, thinking in terms of an 84-lap race. Now he stopped at lap number 20, which means that he only went about 50 miles. And if he could get 80 miles, twice more, that means one more stop, theoretically he could do it on just one more, but he'll have to stop at least one more, and they might be cutting it a little close right down to the very end. That for Rahal.
Yes, that could be cutting it very close. But then you also got the chance of the yellow coming out and being able to come back and also.
John Paul Jr. returned to IndyCar competition after suffering an injury at the Indianapolis 500. And we had an opportunity to talk with John Paul Jr., winner of the Michigan 500, about these track conditions here at Mid-Ohio.
When you're out in front alone or when you're out here practicing, is there a place on this track, at Riverside, of course, it's turn 9, is there a place here where you really have to be fast to turn in that good lap?
Yeah, there is. It's the keyhole. It's the cutbacks and the off-camber turn that leads onto the main straightaway. I think it's the most important turn on the track because it does lead onto the longest straightaway. And the fact that it's off-camber, it's very hard to get the power down. So you really got to power slide the thing through the corner to really get on the boost so you can get the power down early.
John Paul Jr. from Lawrenceville, Georgia, started this race in 3rd place and is in the lead at the end of 20 laps out of 84. And of course, there you can see he was the winner of the 1982 24 Hours of Daytona.
A couple of pit notes. The number 8 car, which was started by Chip Mead here today, has gone off the course. He has officially been eliminated. Also number 65, Phil Kruger, whom we saw a couple of times getting off course early in this race as we continue to watch our second running, to make that first running car, John Paul Jr. Phil Kruger also now being listed as a DNF. Did not finish his event, reason out, fuel pump.
There's the interval between 1st and 2nd position. John Paul Jr. and Al Unser Jr. Both of these young race drivers making a mark in IndyCar racing. Well, we have talked previously about the fact that the PC-11s that were run earlier this year really aren't being run anymore. And we had a chance to talk to Penske and Patrick about development of cars and out engineering themselves.
Every winner, lots of research, lots of development, lots of dollars. Did you out-engineer yourself in 1983?
Well, of course, if you always stand still with the same car, you have a lot of guys go by. And in 1983, we took our PC-10. Of course, we had a rules change and tried to make a better car. It's interesting to note now at Mid-Ohio, we're running a PC-10. That's the car that we finished up with last year. However, it's really not the latest version of it. We had a different rear suspension, which we could have run. We knew it was a good suspension. We would have had it on our 11, but I decided because of reliability we'd stay with a Hewland gearbox and not go with the Wiseman or the March type gearboxes. It's turned out probably that was not the right move. We're going to have that type of suspension and that type of setup for the next races at the end of the year, but it's been a catch-up situation, trying to be better. Remember, with everyone running a March, and if we can get a better mousetrap, that'd give us quite an advantage. But I guess what I've tried to do is look at the series and where we are. Al's leading the championship comfortably. That doesn't mean that we're going to be comfortable at the end if we don't win it. But I can tell you that decision to be reliable has paid off.
Pat, is it possible to out-engineer yourself as you try to improve year after year after year?
Well, I think this year's a good example. We sure out-engineered ourselves. We built a car that evidently doesn't run as good as we thought it should, and I think that's probably because it's a little bit over-engineered.
What do you do? Do you go back to last year's design, or do you start all over this winter?
What we did is get a couple of marches with Danny and Gaius and start reworking our car. We've revised our car, reworked it completely. We'll have 2 new Wildcats at Michigan, and we really think they're going to run good like JR did at Pocono.
And we will have live coverage of that race at Michigan International Raceway. As we see here in Mid-Ohio, Al Unser Jr. is closing in on the leader, John Paul Jr. And the last time they came by when they were here on the straightaway, there was quite an interval between them, but now Al has really closed in the gap.
And in the story of chassis, Al Unser is in the lone Eagle that's running up front. There were a total of 4 Eagles. Dick Simon, Phil Kruger, and Greg Leffler also entered this race. And Al Unser getting a little squirmy coming out of that corner. 4 Eagles entered, but this is the only one. And Gordy, he ran very quick in this Eagle at Riverside also.
Well, yes, he did. You know, I kind of think that Al Jr. wished he had his march back. He did run his march in one race and was really more competitive with it than he was the Eagle. And I think he wished he had it back, but they have sold the car, so unfortunately the only thing he's got is the Eagle. But if the car will run, he'll drive it. You don't have to worry about that. And he's right there showing them now that if John Paul Jr. makes one little slip, that Al Unser Jr. is going to be right under it.
Well, the March has been sold. The March that Al Unser Jr. drove earlier this year has been sold to Bill Alsop, and he started 22nd in this race in that car. So Bill Alsop in car number 11 driving the March that Al Unser Jr. used to drive.
We were anticipating the first series of pit stops. Remember, this is an 84-lap race from the leaders between laps 25 and 30. And now we pick up on the scanner that John Paul Jr.'s crew has indicated to him that he should stop on lap 25 or lap 26. We're coming up on lap 24 here, so in the next 3 or 4 minutes, expect some of the leaders to start ducking in for their routine service.
So this is how we stack up at the end of 24 laps here. It is John Paul Jr. leading the race. He is being pursued by Al Unser Jr. Running in 3rd position now is Teo Fabi. 4th is Mario Andretti, and 5th, Derek Daly. Join us a week from today, Sunday, September 18th at 12:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Pacific Time. We'll have live coverage of the CART Detroit News Grand Prix 200 from Michigan International Speedway. We'll continue this points battle that is shaping up in CART PPG IndyCar World Series racing. Bobby Rahal will be there, so will Mario Andretti, Al Unser Jr. and Sr., and several other of the CART drivers at Michigan next weekend. Here at Mid-Ohio, the leader, John Paul Jr., is pitting.
When John Paul comes in for that stop that we expected, they're checking the tires on the right side. Remember, we're running clockwise, so theoretically the tires on the left side get most of the abuse, but that crew is very happy with the performance of those Goodyears on there. No change of tires. They just gave the car a drink of fuel. There is his closest adversary. Now, they come out of the pit side by side, but John Paul had the momentum. He was pitted down towards the final corner, the 15th turn. They get up to speed going down that first short straightaway going into the chicane, and they're just about where they were when they pitted.
They come back out on the racetrack at just about the same interval that they went into the pits.
It was a very good pit stop for both of them. Al Unser Jr., I think, was just a little bit quicker because he was losing ground to John Paul Jr. there just before they pitted, but he's a little closer to him now than they were.
Now the cars are up to full speed as they go down the backstretch, and look at Al Unser Jr. close in the gap on John Paul Jr. Several of the cars have not pitted so far. Here is one of them, Teo Fabi, and he is shown as the leader, but remember, he'll be coming in for a pit stop very shortly. So we have our 3rd leader of the afternoon. Bobby Rahal led the first few laps, then John Paul Jr., now Teo Fabi into the lead in that Skoal Bandit car 33.
You know, some interesting comments from Teo this week, obviously the flag bearer of the Forsythe Racing team. The team was so fast and so spectacularly setting on the pole the early part of this season, and Teo still has been certainly among the fastest cars we've seen this year. But Teo admitted to us that the team has become very conscious of their opportunity to be champion this year, and they've decided to really concentrate on finishing races. Now, obviously, with a guy like Teo, it's going to be hard to hold him back at all, but Teo, he's been thinking about their chances for the season-long championship. They're in it for the points, and they're not really changing their strategy. They're just adjusting their emphasis a little bit.
Teo, of course, got off on a great start in the 1983 season, won the pole position for several races, including the Indianapolis 500, and then showed up in victory lane earlier this year at Pocono International Raceway. His only victory of the year, Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy.
We were talking about the course here, Gordy, a few minutes ago, about the narrowness of it. You can pass here, but you know, it really makes the racing close, and for my money, it's kind of exciting here because it is a driver's racetrack. You got to work hard, particularly when you're lapping slower cars.
Well, certainly it is. That's what you got to really concentrate on when you're coming up on slower cars and know where they're at and know where you're going to get by them at. I might note here that I think Teo Fabi is driving a very smooth, consistent race today, and you better watch him because he'd have to be there in the winner's circle again.
He started this race in second position outside of row number 1 alongside the pole sitter Bobby Rahal. Teo qualified at 105.845 miles an hour, and he shows no sign of coming in for a pit stop. And we have noted throughout the season that Teo is one of the later ones among the leaders to make a pit stop.
They seem to be getting good fuel, or maybe good fuel mileage, or maybe it is strategy. By the way, Andretti right now runs second. He is not pitted yet. And remember, at Riverside, we felt that maybe that crew had a little bit of edge in the mile per gallon situation.
Derek Daly going very slowly on the racetrack. Here is a story because Derek qualified so well, qualified for 5th starting position at over 104 miles an hour. This is his first time in this car. It's a team car to Tony Bettenhausen, Provimi Veal, but Derek Daly is very slow on the racetrack now.
And he has been in the pit, so it is not a fuel situation.
Jim Truman, the owner of the Bobby Rahal car and of Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course with Gary Lee.
If there is one team that would have an advantage in fuel consumption, it should be Bobby Rahal, car number 2 with the stock block Chevy, but I understand there is some concern now with the fuel pickup problem.
Well, the fuel consumption is fine, but for some reason the car started to bobble on fuel about 18 laps in, and it shouldn't have, and we're not sure if it was a fluke, or we're just going to see what happens this next time. If it does the same thing, it means we're going to need at least 1, maybe 2 extra pit stops.
But right now the fuel consumption is over 2 miles per gallon. That's fine.
Yeah, we're fine on the consumption. It's just that we might have something jammed in a pickup point. Just don't know.
Concern in the pit of Bobby Rahal.
All right, and our leader, Teo Fabi, is in the pits now, so that's going to put John Paul Jr., we believe, back in the lead, followed by Al Unser Jr. Here they are crossing the start-finish line, and now into turn number 1. There's the work being done on the Teo Fabi car. It's going to be a quick pit stop, and they push him away. Teo Fabi back out on the race course, and he's going to maintain 3rd or 4th position, I do believe.
They've had some really tough breaks in the pit area this season. It's perhaps cost them 2 races. They were certainly in it at Indianapolis when they had a malfunction with the fuel refilling system. Of course, at Riverside, if you were with us, you saw that they were penalized for running over the hose in a competitor's pit area. But Teo has become the most consistent qualifier in all of kart IndyCar racing, as we see our leader, John Paul Jr., putting a lap on Rick Mears, I believe. There is Tony Bettenhausen Jr., the teammate to Derek Daly, both of the Provimi Veal cars in the pits, apparently with problems at the same time.
Well, they're using some water to apparently wash some fuel away from that car, and the report from the pit area is that there was or is a fire in the Tony Bettenhausen pit. Of course, one of the new safety regulations this year, instituted by Championship Auto Racing teams, was to have a supply of water in every pit so that there is a fire, it can be extinguished quickly. Looks like they're getting the Provimi Veal car started once again, and Tony Bettenhausen goes back out into the race. You can see his teammate, though, Derek Daly's car, still in the pits.
We are at this point in the race under a yellow flag for the pit area, which is sort of an unusual term if you're an oval tracker, and the leader, John Paul Jr., is into the pits again.
So that makes Al Unser Jr. our leader now, and here is John Paul Jr. signaling frantically to the pit crew to check to see what the problem is. It looks like it could be an engine problem, but in any case, it has brought John Paul Jr. into the pit area.
Well, he was in just a few laps ago for the planned stop, and I'll tell you, the way they're walking slowly around, I'm just wondering if this problem is not potentially terminal.
Well, the word from the pit area is that the engine is off in that car. He is without power, and it does look serious for the John Paul Jr. crew.
John Paul, who has performed so well in his rookie season as far as Indianapolis car type racing goes, a man who obviously is an expert road racer, and he certainly looked like he was in a good position here in Mid-Ohio.
The word from kart scoring is that Mario Andretti is shown as the leader. Here is Al Unser Jr. passing Rick the end now of 30 laps here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. The leader, Mario Andretti, running in second position, Al Unser Jr. B, yes it is, Gordon Johncock, back in 1965, rookie year at the Indy 500.
You're on, Gordy.
Yeah, that's so long ago I can't even remember that. Mario and Al Unser and I were all rookies at the same time.
What was the car, Gordy? The Weinberger Holmes?
Yes, it was an old Roadster. It was only two of us made the race in 1965 in a Roadster, and I believe I finished fourth.
Right here this afternoon at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, it is Mario Andretti leading this race. Here he is in car number 3. John Paul Jr., unfortunately, is out of the race.
Written across the face of John Paul. You were up. It looked like it could have been your race today. What happened?
Well, we were leading after Rail had his problems. Ran up front until the fuel stopped, went back out. Mears was giving me some problems. I went in deep and downshifted and nothing. It's just stuck in gear. The way it goes.
Up until that point, what type of racing conditions did we have? Some concern for the track breaking up yesterday in qualifying and practice. How are the conditions now?
The track's fine. It's not having any problems with it. The only real problem out there is the traffic, but the racetrack's, excuse me, holding up very well.
Very disappointed, John Paul Jr.
Mario Andretti has come into the pits for a stop. That puts Al Unser Jr. in the lead, and in second, trying to make that third position now is Teo Fabi. Here is Bill Tempero also in the pit area.
By the way, Andretti went 33 laps, significantly further than any of the other front runners. As we told you, though, because of the exact distance of this race, any advantage that Mario would have because he can go a little longer because everybody's going to stop twice is probably going to be eliminated because we're going 200 miles.
There is Teo Fabi, and immediately in front of him is Bobby Rahal, who ran so well in the early stages of this race, but who has slowed down considerably. Bobby Rahal and Teo Fabi out there on the racetrack. One thing we must say about this racetrack, we were here in 1980 to watch this, or to televise this race for ESPN, and they have made tremendous changes as far as appearance of this racetrack. Jim Truman has put a tremendous amount of money into it, landscape it. It's a very beautiful facility for the spectators to come and watch a race.
A couple of moments ago, we also saw a very dejected John Paul Jr. in the pits with Gary Lee. One more paragraph of that story. If you look at the list of owners in IndyCar racing, you'll note that the VDS team is owned by, well, a man that they call Count Rudy van der Straten. He really is a Count. That is not just a title that they have thrown into this entry list in jest. He's a Belgian Count whose family has been in Belgian royalty for quite a number of years. They are involved in the brewing industry in Belgium, and Count van der Straten has simply chosen to exercise his interest in automobile racing here in the States in Indianapolis car racing. We're mighty happy to have him. He's brought just one fine team to kart IndyCar racing.
Shown as the leader, Al Unser Jr. Second position belongs to car number 2, Bobby Rahal, and in third place, Teo Fabi. Fourth is car number 3, Mario Andretti. There's Kevin Kogan in car number 6, and Kevin driving the Theodore here this weekend.
Well, they've been experimenting with that car all year long. George Bignotti has hopes for that car. The car that he brought over hoping to get it into the Indianapolis 500 originally this season. This is the first time that they have been able to get this particular chassis into a race. They've been working very hard with it. It's obviously the only one in this race, and really the only one that's been active in American racing this season.
Running in 8th place, Kevin Kogan from Redondo Beach, California. Kevin started this race in 15th position, qualifying at 100.880 miles an hour.
It's been a season of recovery for Kevin. If you followed the circuit a year ago, Kevin took a lot of criticism from some of the veteran drivers, but he was able to land another one of the first-class rides with a first-class team for the 1983 season. He's been working very hard, I think, not only to improve on some of the things that happened last year, but also to refine his driving skills. And I'll tell you, in a fast race car, we saw last year in the 1982 season, nobody in this type of racing can be any faster than Kevin on a road course. Here's one excellent race driver who can really handle a race car.
So 35 laps completed out of 84 that will make up the 200-mile race here this afternoon. The leader, Al Unser Jr., running in second position, about 5 seconds behind is Bobby Rahal. Third place belongs to Teo Fabi. Fourth place is Mario Andretti. And fifth position is Al Unser Sr. Those are the top 5 here as we watch Bobby Rahal trying to get around Bill Alsop in car number 11. You can see Alsop showing some courtesy, pulling to the inside of the racetrack so that the faster cars can pass.
As you find that Bill Alsop is always that way. If everybody was as courteous as Bill Alsop on the racetrack, it would save us a lot of accidents.
Well, this is a racetrack that you have to have a certain amount of that displayed because of the narrowness of it, or you're going to find out that a lot of people are in some trouble. Well, ESPN and Championship Auto Racing Teams now presents a Track Fact.
From the front, these look like a couple of aerodynamic devices, sort of like those dihedral wings we saw on the old Viceroy Parnellis about 15 years ago. But from the driver's point of view, it's readily apparent there are a couple of rear-view mirrors. Now, for the drivers who came up to the midget and sprint car ranks, they never drove with rear-view mirrors. They're not allowed at a lot of the local tracks around the country. And until Indianapolis cars went rear-engined back in the 1960s, a lot of drivers had never driven a race car with them. Obviously, they have to be fastened down tightly. You can't move them during the running of the race. And there are those who will tell you that it may be the most important device for safety on a race car.
We'll continue our coverage of the Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in a moment. 35 out of 84 laps completed, and everybody is chasing Al Unser Jr. Well, you will not see these individuals on an oval course. These are the corner workers, and they play a very important part in keeping the drivers aware of what's going on at a particular portion of the racetrack. We look further at corner workers. Here is Gary Lee.
In oval track racing, the drivers depend on the flagman for road conditions. The flagman is then backed up by a series of warning lights, either green or yellow or red. But here on the road course at Mid-Ohio, the flagman is backed up by 16 flag stations. Now, at the stations, we have over 125 volunteers. They man the flags at the corners, they man the safety crews, and also the communication crews in direct link-up with the communication center at the start-finish line.
Now, all stations, stationary yellow flag. Coming out of turn 1 now. Car 6 is coming out of turn 1 now.
The flags differ just a bit in oval track racing. First of all, the yellow flag. When it comes out, it simply means there's a problem on the racetrack in the stationary position. If it's the figure-8 position, it means something drastic is happening, a very serious altercation. You may have to actually get off the race course to get around the situation. Then there is the yellow and the red stripe flag. This means debris of some nature on the race course. It could be oil, it could be water or grease. The white flag in oval track racing means one more lap and it's all over. But here at the road course, it means an emergency vehicle, such as a fire wagon or an ambulance, may be on the race course. Be aware. And then the courtesy flag, the move-over flag, the red flag, the yellow diagonal stripe means that a faster car is coming up, wanting to pass, take notice, and take appropriate action. The black flag could be mechanical, or it could mean that the driver has done something wrong, and that means the driver has to come back in to make a pit stop the next time around. Now, if the red flag is displayed at the flagman stand at the start-finish line, then every station, all 16 stations around the track here at Mid-Ohio, would display the black flag, and that means stop immediately. And, of course, the green flag means go, we're racing, and the checkered flag means it's all over.
Bobby Rahal is back in the pits. Bobby was running second, had been passed by Teo Fabi a lap ago, and has come back into the pits for another stop. It's a quick stop, though, 16.4 seconds. Rahal back out there, but he has been in the pits now twice in the first 39 laps.
Like Jim Truman said, Bob, I think they're having a serious fuel pickup problem because I noticed him a couple laps going by here just before he pitted that the engine was running very rough. He just wasn't picking up the fuel by the sound of it.
So that means that he's going to have to keep the fuel topped off more than the other drivers.
Yes, he's going to have to make twice as many stops as the rest of them do, and it's surely going to hurt him because it's going to put him back.
There is the leader, Al Unser Jr., who is looking for his first win in IndyCar competition. One of those young drivers who we expect in victory lane
There's Al Unser Jr., currently ranked 5th in the point standings. We say the pride and joy of Dan Gurney because right now this is the highest flying eagle in the land. And Gordy, I am really impressed with what he's getting out of that race car. None of the other top teams are really even trying the eagle, but this team is proving, the Rick Gallus team, that these cars can still go fast.
Well, yes, they are. And they've worked with the car pretty much all season and done a lot of testing. And Al Unser Jr. has done a lot of road racing. He knows how to get around these road courses, and he's smooth with it. So, you know, he makes up a lot for the car, really.
Well, Rick Gallus, of course, the owner of this racing operation, and he is with Gary Lee in the pit area right now.
Rick Gallus, all the hoopla this weekend has surrounded Bobby Rahal. This is his home track, but there were a lot of veterans saying, hey, this could be the day, this could be the weekend, this could be the track for Al Unser Jr.
Well, you know, qualifying is important, but the most important thing is the race, and we kind of felt like our car was going to be good in the race as it has been the rest of the years before, so we're just out trying the best we can, but the car's handling pretty well.
It appeared that the strategy was let's wait and see. Let somebody else pace it for a while. We'll hang tight and let the race come back to us.
Well, Al just goes out and runs the way he feels most comfortable, and he's normally pretty good on the race car, so I think, you know, again, Bobby's chasing us pretty tight right now, but it's a long race still to go.
And once again, the strategy really comes from the cockpit of the race car, right?
That's right. He's the one that does it. We just stand here and watch.
A big smile from the car owner, Al Unser Jr.
And Al Unser Jr. has just moved through turn 1, now is up through the chicane, headed uphill to the keyhole. Sharpest turn on this course, and out of it he will stand on the throttle and get on the 3,000-foot-long backstretch. Al Unser Jr. Of course, Al Unser Jr., a second-generation driver. Could there be a third-generation driver? Well, this is the young son, Albert Unser. Sunday, September 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Join us live for the AAA World Series from Cardinal Stadium in Louisville, Kentucky. We proudly presented a baseball bonanza that begins on the 18th. Coverage of the AAA World Series, the regular season champions from the 3 U.S. leagues, the American Association, the International League, and the Pacific Coast League go to bat for the title. And I'll tell you, in Louisville, Kentucky, the team really draws down there. They draw about 35 or 40,000 fans for each game, so it should be a great series. Join us for the AAA World Series beginning on Sunday, September the 18th. It's a good battle for the lead here as Al Unser Jr. is leading, but right behind him, and there you can see the interval, Teo Fabi. Gordy mentioned a few minutes ago that Teo is driving a smart race, and he is right in there waiting for his opportunity to move into the lead once again.
Some pit notes as we tune on this battle for the lead. The number 15 car of Bill Tempero has dropped out of the race with transmission problems as Fabi continues to close in on Al Unser Jr. That time passing through the carousel, moving through slower traffic. Herm Johnson was there. Al Unser Jr. executing it just perfect as he came to the carousel and held on to his lead.
To turn number 1 again, and down the short straightaway leading to the chicane. A sharp right and then a sharp left. Al Unser Jr. leading Teo Fabi by just a very few feet. They go into the keyhole once again. Now go out of it and down the backstretch. Running in third position at this time is Mario Andretti. He's about 28 seconds behind, but there is the interval between first and second position. Al Unser Jr. stretching it out just a little bit as they go down the backstretch.
As we watch them go over that little whoop-de-doo, I guess the BMX bikers would call it, at the end of the long backstretch. Both of these cars right now have teams in the pit area that are very confident. We've talked to both of these teams within the last 15 or 20 minutes, and they both feel as though they've got the right answer for today. The fuel mileage seemed to be about the same. Talking about fuel mileage, Gordy, Mario Andretti, they're doing it again. You know, Mario was the last car to pit. Is it possible that because he can get better mileage, that we get down to the final stages of this race, he'll be faster on a lower load of fuel?
Well, I don't know if he'll be any faster now, but I don't think he's getting enough fuel mileage. His fuel mileage is that much better that he'll be able to make one less stop. Now, if he was able to make one less stop, that would win the race for him because he's only 28 seconds down, and by the time you slow down, come in the pit, get your fuel load, and go out, it's going to cost you at least 28 seconds or more.
Through the chicane once again, into the keyhole. Fabi right there on the rear wing of Al Unser Jr., the 1981 SCCA Super V champion. His best finish in an IndyCar race was second at the Pocono 500 earlier this year.
The Super Vs have really proven to be a springboard at this type of racing. No less than 8 drivers who qualified for the grid this weekend. We have a car spun off course. I believe it's Bill Alsop. You can see the skid marks. He's had some contact with the outside retaining wall.
Like he may have backed that car into, no, it's front end damage to the Bill Alsop car. Corner workers are trying to get that car in a position where it can be taken off the track, but this is Bill Alsop in that March that was recently purchased from the Al Unser Jr. team.
That's in what people here at Mid-Ohio call the chute. There are actually 2 back stretches, you might say. The front stretch goes right in front of the start-finish line where we are positioned. There's a long back stretch. It's about 3,000 feet long, which Al Unser Jr. and Teo Fabi are headed toward right now. Then there's a shorter back stretch, which is called the chute, that Bill Alsop had spun off on.
Well, Teo Fabi finished in second position at Riverside, and there was a question as to whether he should indeed finish in that because of an infraction, and we talked to him about that.
Teo, the pits have been a problem for the team this year. Riverside, there was a ruling from an official. How do you feel about it?
Well, the rules are not very clear, I think, and for sure the official made a mistake at Riverside, so we lost the race.
In what way do you feel as though the official made a mistake?
Well, because the line was over in the pits, and it was impossible to go out without going over the line.
When you were called in, were the communications complete? Did you know exactly why you were being called in?
No, because what I said before, it was impossible to go out without going over the line.
And while Teo was explaining that infraction, he got caught in a situation that he just couldn't avoid out there.
Bob, I couldn't tell if he just couldn't see because there was a lot of dust in the air, but I also noticed a lot of dust being on the racetrack. I think there was just some loose sand on the track, and he skated right off. Gordy proved to be a good mudder. He stayed right on it, drove through the grass, and lost some ground, but didn't lose too much.
Well, yes, he did stay straight. I didn't see it right there at first, but he did stay straight, and that's the main thing. Just stay off the gas and try and let the car just coast slowly until you can get it straightened back up and get it on the racetrack. Because once you get one of these cars in the grass with these slick tires, it's just as bad or worse as being on ice.
Well, we have 5 cars on the lead lap. Leader is Al Unser Jr. Second place, this man, Teo Fabi, car number 33. Running in third place is Mario Andretti. In fourth is Bobby Rahal. And fifth place is Al Unser Sr. Those cars on the lead lap. A lap down, car number 20, Danny Andias, and car number 6 driven by Kevin Kogan. The interval between first and second position now is just about 3 seconds.
There's Teo going through madness. He just geared down from 170, 180 miles per hour. He's in turns like 6 through 10. Remember, there are 15 of them on this race course.
And once again, a safety vehicle out there on the course as the race cars speed by. Let's check in with Gary Lee in the pit area.
Barry Green, the strategy as far as the leader seems to be within the cockpit. They let Al Unser Jr. determine the pace. Is the strategy right now for Teo Fabi coming from the cockpit or from the crew here in the pit area?
Teo's driving his own race, Gary, and I'm sure he's driving well within himself. We're getting good fuel consumption, and so far everything's going okay.
So the crew and the team manager, Barry Green, you're happy right now with this second position?
So far, we've got a long way to go. We're over 30 laps to go.
Of course, very, very content on seeing what is going on. He is keeping some lap charts here. So once again, the team is pleased with the progress so far in the Skoal Bandit.
So far, Gary. Long way to go yet, though.
It's a long way for the Skoal Bandit.
And we have completed just a little bit over half of the race now with the leader Al Unser Jr., Teo Fabi running in second position. And we will be back with more coverage of the Escort Radar Warning 200 after this. Al Unser Jr. is in trouble. We saw smoke starting to come from the engine of that car. It looks like he has blown the engine. Al Unser Jr. is going to be stalled on the race course. A tough break for this young driver, still looking for win 1. And here is what happened while we were away. The cars just started to puff some smoke coming out of the S's. Gordy, no warning whatsoever.
No, there wasn't. You know, it's a tough break for the kid. This is what's happened to him all year long. He's finished second in so many races, and some of them he's broken, but you can bet in every one he's been leading.
Gordy, this little piece of aerodynamics midway between his helmet and the rear wing, that's sprouted on that race car.
Yes, that's something new. That's a new small wing that they have put on this Eagle. This is the first that I've seen it, is here at Mid-Ohio. This has been the first race for it. And evidently, I think it has helped him somewhat.
A dejected Al Unser Jr. sits helplessly in his race car, waiting for a tow truck to come to his aid and pull him back into the pit area, but the afternoon is over for him. Teo Fabi now becomes the leader of this race. Car number 33, the Skoal Bandit. Second place will now go to Mario Andretti, and third, Bobby Rahal. Rahal's about 38 seconds behind, and Mario Andretti is 29 seconds behind Teo Fabi. So Fabi's looking good here as we have completed just a little more than half of this event. Well, we told you that Teo Fabi was protesting his second place finish at Riverside because of a pit infraction. Here's more on that situation.
The pit stop, a frantic moment in any automobile race. It's also a moment that requires some precision and team coordination. Now, in recent races, we have seen a lot of pit infractions which have changed the complexion of the races, so we thought it was time to examine them. The first thing that happens, everybody over the wall. Now, the number of people over the wall is critical. You're only allowed 5. If you have more than 5, that's a penalty. There's also a category called unattended equipment. Notice that tire rolling across the speed lane in the pits, that's a penalty, and also that rear tire that's left simply unattended sitting out there. In our demonstration, you'll notice that the crew members are not wearing fireproof clothing. That is required for everybody in the pit area who comes over the wall. If everyone is not wearing that, another penalty. Now, this air hose right here is also an opportunity for an error to be made. The driver is allowed, believe it or not, to run over this with his front wheels, but not with the rear wheels. There is drive on the rear wheels, and if the rear wheels picked this up and whipped it, it could cause a very dangerous situation. Now the driver, he's got to concentrate during this pit stop. He gets liquid refreshment every time, and if he's not careful where he deposits that bottle of liquid refreshment after the pit stop, that also can bring about a penalty. He has to throw it that direction back to his own pit area. Now there's one other thing that happens when the car leaves the pit area. Obviously, you've got to get it back up to speed. If the car is a little sluggish in getting away, the crew is allowed to assist by pushing. But if that action requires more than 3 pit spaces, penalty. What is the penalty? Well, it's a subjective decision that usually the chief steward eventually gets involved in making. It can take 2 forms, either a stop-and-go penalty, which we have seen a couple of times this season, or in a very severe case, even a 1-lap deduction. How do you determine what penalty to apply, a stop-and-go or a 1 lap?
We like to use a stop-and-go penalty during a green condition of a racetrack, green flag, and when there's ample time left in the competition to assess that penalty.
And what happens if you are late in the contest, and that seems to be an impractical moment to do that?
Under those conditions, the competitor would be assessed a 1-lap penalty.
And who makes the decision, Kirk? Is it a one-man call, or is it a committee that gets together on the radios?
When a violation is committed, the violation is called to the chief steward, and in most cases, a recommended penalty is also given at that radio transmission.
Out on the race course, Teo Fabi continues to be our leader. And here is Tom Sneva in car number 5, who is the only repeat winner on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series for this year. He, of course, won the Indianapolis 500 and came back the very next race to win the Milwaukee 150 in a disputed race, but he was eventually given back that win. Now, he is running in 7th place here this afternoon.
And it's unlikely that win number 3 will come for Tom here this weekend at Mid-Ohio. Tom came to IndyCar racing with no experience on the road courses, and he will readily admit that he is still learning. He is 1 lap down, but actually has run a pretty smooth race. You do get the feeling that every time you see Tom Sneva on a road course that he learns just a little more. Here's a guy who certainly has the oval done, and there's Al Unser Sr., who took a shortcut through the green here at Mid-Ohio. Al Unser Sr. certainly running up among the top 10. Matter of fact, he's still in the lead lap in 4th position, at least prior to that little exhibition.
I imagine he's stayed on the lead lap, but he is about 43 seconds down. Al Unser Sr., his son Al Unser Jr. is already out of this race. Al Unser Jr. dropped out with an engine problem while leading. By the way, we only have 4 cars on the lead lap now. Teo Fabi, Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and this man, Al Unser Sr.
He certainly gets the award for the ability to finish races this year, Gordy. That race car seems to run all day every time you see it.
Yes, I think Al Unser Sr.'s only fallen out of one race all year long. And Bobby Rahal is doing a tremendous job for the pit stops that he's had to make, and still in 3rd spot.
He sure is. He has slowed down on the course a couple of times and, of course, made a couple of pit stops. But Bobby Rahal continuing to run well in 3rd place. Here's the driver who is right ahead of him in 2nd place, Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Another one of the solo chassis that was entered here this week. This, of course, is the Lola that importer Carl Haas brought to America for this season's IndyCar Series. A car that was brand new in terms of its design for Indianapolis car racing for this season. Another crew that's had to work very hard to make a lot of changes. They've had some bad luck. They've had a couple of crashes that have sent them back to the drawing board. They stuck with their own design, and it has paid off. They picked up 1 win earlier this year on road course at Elkhart Lake.
Yeah, Larry, they've really had an awful problem this year with the Budweiser car and Carl Haas and Mario Andretti, and just like we have had with the Patrick Racing. You know, it's a new car, designed car, and it seems to work fairly well on the road courses. But when it comes to the high banks or the flat tracks on the ovals, the car just doesn't work that well, and they really haven't found the right combination yet.
Well, let's back up and look again at what happened a few seconds ago as he went under the overpass, and a good example of how you use every inch of the racetrack on a road course.
Yeah, you can see where he got off there a little bit and caused a little dust behind. Now, if there'd been somebody right directly behind him, it could have caused them to spin because he threw sand on the racetrack when he done that.
It was a good example also. You were saying earlier about breaking the rear wheels loose, but it'll give you a bite on the racetrack that comes back on.
Well, yes, you can hook to whichever side it is next to it off the edge of the asphalt and hook yourself enough to, you know, to throw the back end around a little bit or the front end, whichever you need to do. You can use the car that way.
Well, you can offer all kinds of apologies and words of sympathy to a driver who drops out after leading the race, but it really doesn't fill the bill. Al Unser Jr. in that category. Gary Lee is with Al Unser Jr. in the pit area.
Gone well, but what's it going to take?
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe some luck. We need some luck for that. I just, you know, I was out there. I was working hard to stay in the lead, but, you know, everything was going good. All my temps were at 200 or below, and, you know, everything was great.
You had no warning?
No warning. It just quit. Just quit.
Now it's time to collect the thoughts and wait for another week for Michigan.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll get him at Michigan.
Still time to collect one more victory before the season's over for Al Unser Jr.
Thank you.
We will have live coverage of that race next Sunday afternoon from Michigan International Speedway. Here is Danny Engaias driving the car normally assigned to Gordon Johncock, and Danny's doing quite well in that car here this afternoon, running in, I believe, 7th position.
Oh, yes, he has, Bob. He's been running very smooth and consistent. They've had good pit stops. He hasn't been quite as fast as the leaders, but he's been running smooth and consistent, and we still got a long ways to go, and he could very well be in the first 5 before the afternoon's over with.
Danny did compete here at Mid-Ohio back in 1980. He started in 5th place and finished 21st, dropped out with an ignition problem. Danny Engaias in the STP car here this afternoon, car number 20.
We picked up off the radios again, Bob and Gordon, that both of the cars running in the first 2 positions, Teo Fabi, and of course the Skull Bandit number 33, and Mario Andretti in the Budweiser number 3, are planning on stopping on lap number 60. Now, that's not to say that the team members in the pits know that. It's just ironic that at this point, with 54 laps complete, that both of them are planning on stopping at the same time. If so, that could be a little exciting. Both of them had stopped at about lap 30 for their first pit stop, so obviously both Fabi and Andretti right smack dab on schedule.
Yes, if they stop on that lap, then they'll be able to go the rest of the way without another pit stop.
Danny Engaias back in 1978 won 5 IndyCar races and was really really a hot driver on the IndyCar racing scene. Here is Desiree Wilson in car number 34, who has slowed drastically on the racetrack, and Pancho Carter having a tough time getting braked and avoid hitting her. Here is Desiree Wilson, car number 34, going very slowly on the racetrack.
Pancho Carter and the Johnny Caples wrench machine. There's another car that certainly gets plaudits for its ability to create longevity, Gordy. That car also seems to have the ability to finish, but we've seen that from Johnny Caples in the past. He's very precise and very thorough. I remember asking Pancho one time, what's the secret? Pancho said he's so organized that we're always ready every day we show up at the shop. There again is Desiree Wilson with a problem on the track, driving one-handed, trying to limp back home to the pit area.
Desiree Wilson is signaling frantically to the drivers approaching her from the rear to go to her right, and she is headed for the pit area right now. Desiree Wilson from Forest Hills, New York. ESPN and Championship Auto Racing teams present another Track Fact.
There are a lot of kart rules designed specifically for driver protection and driver safety. The helmet, the uniform, and there's one in particular. All the drivers are required to display prominently on their uniform their blood type.
Mario Andretti, second place. The third place car is into the pits. Mario Andretti is going to be a quick pit stop. He is out again on the racetrack, and we'll be back with more coverage of the Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in a moment. The leader is Teo Fabi. ESPN invites you to Belmont Park for the 11th running of the Marlboro Cup on Saturday, September 24th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:30 Pacific Time, live. Join us for this invitational handicap of 3-year-olds and up. Middle of Jewel's Belmont Fall Championship Series of purses, $400,000. Join us Saturday, September 24th at 4:30 Eastern Time. Howdy Holmes, running in the top 10, has made a pit stop, and Howdy is back on the racetrack.
Team Shearson, we talked about the parity that has come to Indianapolis-type car racing. This is one of the driver-team combinations that I think is a real potential threat to win every time out. They've had their chances like so many of the other teams. You think of the other non-winners, Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears. But the little things mean so much when there's such competitiveness within one particular division. There are so many people capable of winning every time out, and certainly Howdy Holmes and Doug Shearson are among those. And one of these weeks, it's all going to fall into place for them, and I've commented about it a couple of times earlier this season, but I want to make one more comment about it as we watch Mario Andretti move up to battle with Howdy Holmes. I was so impressed with what Howdy Holmes did at Indianapolis this year. That performance he turned in is one that I'll never forget. I spent the last 20 laps in his pits, and I know how hard he had to work to finish.
Now, the real activity at this point of the race is in the pit area because Bobby Rahal has come in for another stop. Not only are they going to fuel it up, but they're going to change rubber. Here's Gary Lee.
Well, once again, we had intimated earlier there was a fuel pickup problem with Bobby Rahal. We talked to Jim Truman. Indeed, he is running through until about 13 gallons left in the tank, and then it begins to starve for fuel. So they had planned to go the distance on only 2 stops. This is actually his 3rd stop, and once again, it looks like they may have to make 4 and still may not go the distance because the car may stall with still 13 gallons left in the tank.
Well, with all the pit stops he's made, he's still doing quite well, being shown in 3rd place right now, as he was in 2nd, but because of that pit stop that he just made, that was only 17 seconds long, he did lose a position and falls to 3rd. The leader continues to be this man, Teo Fabi, but he is in the pit area, so the leader in for his 2nd stop of the afternoon, getting the drink of water, the fuel being put in the car, and the rubber changed on the right side. Teo Fabi waiting patiently as the Timex timer continues to click off. 17 seconds have elapsed. The tires have been changed. The fuel is in. Teo is signaled away, and he goes in 21.6 seconds. Fabi, the leader, on the racetrack again.
We also saw Teo throw that water bottle in the proper direction toward his pit area over the wall. Teo went into the pits with an 80-second lead over Mario Andretti. Rahal was in the pits simultaneously with Teo. I have a feeling that Teo probably was able to get back out and maybe hold on to that lead. I have not picked up yet Mario Andretti's exact position in the racetrack, but Teo may have pitted and returned, Gordy, with the lead. You don't see that too often in IndyCar racing.
Yes, he certainly did. He has a very comfortable lead now. I think Mario went by here just at the time that Fabi pitted. And and he had pretty near a full lap on him, I think, there just before he finished. So that's why I think, you know, his pit stop wasn't too long. It was about 21 seconds or so, and I think they're just not in any big hurry. They're just trying to do everything right.
And Roger Mears, car number 9, is running in 10th place. Now, Howdy Holmes was 10th a few minutes ago. He has moved up to 9th, and Roger Mears, who made a pit stop just a lap ago, is back out there in competition, running 10th. Roger Mears, also hailing from the Bakersfield, California area, the older brother of Rick.
One of the teams that really proved that the PC-10 was still a very fast and reliable car. Rogers had a good season. He's had 5 top 10 finishes. His best finish this year, a 6th place at Cleveland, which was very rewarding considering that frightening crash that he had there a year ago. He was involved in a crash at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year, which was a big disappointment to him. It was really their worst finish other than at Pocono when they had to drop off prematurely with an engine failure. But he's had, in addition to that 6th, a couple of 8ths and a couple of 9ths. One of the most consistent and really best representing teams, I think, in championship car racing.
Car number 34, Desiree Wilson, we showed you a few minutes ago, slowing on the racetrack. Look at the nice move that Roger made there, going to the outside of the track and letting Teo Bobby slip by. Desiree Wilson is out of the race, and the reason, a broken rear suspension. So Teo Bobby on the backstretch is leading this race now with about a 31-second lead on Bobby Rahal and about an 81-second lead on 3rd place Mario Andretti.
The Rookie of the Year battle this year has become a very interesting one because of the influx primarily of 3 people, Bobby Unser Jr. and John Paul Jr. There are the point standings in the Vanderwell Rookie of the Year for the 1983 season. Teo leads it right now, but just by 1 point over Al Unser Jr. John Paul Jr. is 3rd, and Teo had a tremendous advantage here at Mid-Ohio this weekend with his 2 closest adversaries in this particular point standing already dropped out of the race. Chris Kneifel has made a good showing for himself in 1983. Not really in it for the Rookie of the Year honors in terms of the point standings, but he does rank 4th in some pretty fast country.
Well, 12 cars have dropped out of this race. Chip Ganassi, Phil Kruger, Jose Legarza because of an accident, and Chip Mead because of an engine problem. Also out of the race, Pete Halsmer in car number 66. John Paul Jr. with a gearbox problem. Bill Tempero dropped out with overheating, and it was an ignition problem that took Derek Daly out of competition. Al Unser Jr. dropped out with an engine problem. Herm Johnson slid off the course and could not get back on, and of course rear suspension was the reason why Desiree Wilson dropped out of competition. 12 cars out of the race. We've got 4 cars on the lead lap. Teo Bobby, Bobby Rahal, Mario Andretti, and Al Unser Sr.
Pancho Carter, a champion not only in the sprint cars on a couple of occasions, but also in the midgets as well as the dirt cars. A man who has won championships in 3 different types of open wheel equipment. When Pancho Carter was a sprint car driver, truly there was none better. None could go from one racing surface and one type of racetrack to another with as much success as this guy did. He was very fast on the dirt. He was exciting on the high banks, and he was also extremely proficient on the flat paved surfaces. He came to IndyCar racing a few years ago, first running the Bob Fletcher team. He had a stint with Dan Gurney when he was on that team for a few years. He's lodged now with this particular race car. Johnny Caples, we told you, is the chief mechanic on this machine, and really they've had some good success together. They have been one of the most consistent teams in Indianapolis car racing, and Pancho himself has proven that he has the ability to run not only on the ovals but also the road courses.
Pancho Carter drove here in 1980. IndyCar race, started in 9th position and finished 7th. He was running at the end of the event, and he's just a little more than $2,600 short of reaching the $100,000 mark in career IndyCar road course earnings. Pancho Carter from Brownsburg, Indiana.
And of course the car is owned by some close-in passing there as Bobby Rahal, trying to make up some of that lost ground from the extra pit stops, blows right on by Pancho. But those guys have been together next to one another many times already in the 83 season. I think what you saw there was an example of a couple of race drivers who trust each other a lot. Pancho's car owned by Alex Morales, which is one of the, you might call it, legendary names in automobile racing from the Southwest. Alex Morales and the Alex Booth Piñata March.
There's Bobby Rahal, car number 2, running in 2nd place, about 28 seconds behind, despite the fact that He has a fuel pickup problem and is making numerous pit stops, keeping the tank full of fuel as he possibly can. Ray Hall led the early portion of this race, started from the pole position, now running in second.
They recently didn't change but announced the engine rules for championship auto racing teams going through 1987, and actually it's an extension, not really a change. It's really a plan that'll eventually make the PPG Cup Series an all turbocharged formula. All engines will eventually have to be a maximum, I shouldn't say eventually, that is the same right now, a maximum of 8 inches, and all turbocharged engines will compete at 48 inches of manifold relief pressure, same as they currently are now. So really not a change, it's an extension. The teams now know what they are working with through 1987, and it is hoped, of course, that that will make more teams than ever competitive.
This is a Chevrolet-powered car. Gary Lee had an opportunity to examine a little bit more closely the engine specifications.
More and more this season, we're seeing testing being done with a 355 stock block non-aspirated Chevrolet engine on the short road courses. In fact, this Chevrolet was fast in practice on Friday, driven by Bobby Rahal. But why would Bobby use a stock block at Mid-Ohio as opposed to the Cosworth he used to win Riverside just 2 weeks ago? Well, of course, Riverside has the longer straightaways. The Cosworth has about 40 more horsepower and is also about 15 pounds lighter. But here at a tight course like Mid-Ohio, the stock block has better low-end torque coming off the turns and better throttle response for traffic driving.
There's Bobby Rahal driving that Chevrolet normally aspirated stock block engine. He has about a 29.5-second deficit to Teo Fabi, who's the leader of this race. Now only 3 cars on the lead lap. Mario Andretti, the other driver on the lead lap. Al Unser Sr. has fallen a lap down. Out of the competition, Desiree Wilson.
Lady from New York, what happened?
Well, we were running quite well. About 20 laps before the car actually broke, a bolt in suspension broke. I felt a vibration coming on, so I just eased off the gas a little bit, tried to feel what it was, and eventually I spun, and I thought, well, there must be something wrong because it just broke away on me. And within a lap, the rear end of the car was steering the front end, so I knew there was something wrong.
And now, of course, you're going to take a weekend off because next week is Michigan, but the crew is still working on repairing the car that you had to shun in with Pocono.
Yes, we're running our backup car here, and it's a lot of work to try and prepare a backup car for races, as well as get the 83 March ready. And we thought we'd skip Michigan and take a break and let the guys just concentrate 100% on the 83, and then go back to Las Vegas.
And then we'll catch up with you at Laguna Seca in California.
Yes, after Las Vegas, Laguna Seca, and Phoenix.
There's Desiree Wilson. There is Bobby Rahal running second to Teo Fabi. Fabi, already a winner on an oval this year, or on a tri-oval actually, is on his way to victory here this afternoon on a road course. Rahal second, Andretti is third. These 2 world-ranked boxers will square off in the featured light heavyweight bout. Dwight Braxton, the WBA's #1 contender, goes toe-to-toe with third-ranked John Davis. Join us Saturday, September 17th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific Time for Saturday night at the fights. The leader of the Escort Radar Warning 200 with 65 out of 84 laps complete is Teo Fabi. The lead is about 27 seconds on Bobby Rahal. The lead is about 55 seconds on Mario Andretti, and Teo is looking good here in the late stages of this race.
And every time I see this experienced veteran road racer veer off course and kick up that dust, I gasp. You know, Al Unser's engine blowing is maybe very sensitive to that thought, and this car is running so smoothly, just like Al Unser Jr.'s did, and he keeps giving me a little bit of a thrill every time he cuts one of those corners. Teo running the course, still attacking it. Teo Fabi's never been the kind of guy who's been shy behind the steering wheel. You'll never get that from him. Everybody is trying to keep track of what Teo's plans are for the 1984 season. He has admitted that at this point he feels as though he would prefer to go Formula One racing. There have been some rumors in the press that maybe he has a deal arranged with Honda. He shared with us this weekend here at Mid-Ohio that that is not true. Honda is part of the consideration, but Teo kind of indicated that they maybe not be the front runner in terms of those who have made offers to him or at least made gestures his way so far. It's kind of fun, Gordy Johncock. I asked him if he had a preference. He said, well, of course, I'd like to be a Ferrari driver.
Yeah, I imagine he would the way they're running. Ferrari's always right up front. There's no question about it. Year after year after year, that is a team that you can always count on winning a few races throughout the field.
We'd also like to congratulate the most recent winner on the Formula One trail from Brazil, Nelson Piquet.
Teo Fabi, pole position winner this year for several races, the winner of one at Pocono International Raceway. And we ask him if he's now turned his concentration toward winning races and not pole positions.
Well, I think we look very good on the championship now because our car is very good, and so it's very important for us to finish the race and to get points.
While we watch Teo Fabi, the leader, an interesting statistic just handed us by the CART officials. Daniel Gaius is running in 5th position right now, and if he finishes there, it will be his best finish since Watkins Glen 150 back in August of 1980. In that race, he finished 3rd. So Daniel Gaius in the car, signed Gordon Johncock, normally running right now in 5th position, and the best that he has performance he's turned in a long time.
Gordon, something I've always wanted to ask you as we look at, we think about number 20. There is number 20 on the screen, and that powder blue. Which came first, the powder blue on the race car or the powder blue helmet?
I don't really remember, Larry. We got the blue from FCP and the orange color. That was what they had, and Richard Petty colors were the same way, so FCP kind of wanted us to have our colors the same way also.
Well, Danny certainly has had a good day, and it's got to be a good feeling for him. He had that horrendous crash at Indianapolis Motor Speedway a couple of years ago, and really he's kind of been on the comeback trail since then. And with all the things that have happened to the Patrick team this year, this is the first time in a long time that Danny has become, again, a regular and had a chance to really sit behind the wheel of an Indianapolis car and really do some racing.
Well, yes, the Patrick Racing team has had a tough time this year. There's no question about it. We've had a lot of crashes and a lot of unfortunate things happen and have finished very few races this year. And if Danny finishes today, this will be one of the first that we finished this year. And by the looks of things, you know, unless something goes wrong with the car, he's doing a very good job. He's been driving very smooth all day and staying on the racetrack.
Corey, has there been any negotiations, or is it a little bit too early for 1984?
Well, as far as I'm set, whenever the doctor releases me, I'm able to go back, and I'm going to be with the Patrick Racing team. But as far as the second driver, I really don't get into that very much, and at this time I don't know who the second driver will be.
All right, Teo Fabi is the leader of the race. Here is Greg Leffler, car number 64, into the pits. Greg started this race in 26th position in this Jet Engineering Eagle Chevrolet race car, qualifying at 93 miles an hour. Was actually the slowest qualifier, but very consistent performance for Greg Leffler, a veteran sprint car driver.
Greg Leffler, when you think back to 1979, he was one of the first stars of ESPN auto racing coverage. He was the sprint car national champion that year, as we watch him follow Roger Mears and lead Pancho Carter in through the chicane, headed for the keyhole, the slowest point in this race course. He won a main event at Salem, Indiana, I think the second broadcast ever in the history of ESPN in terms of auto racing.
Greg Leffler, of course, did not compete in the 1980 Mid-Ohio IndyCar race. His best finish 6th in the 1982 AirCal 500-kilometer race at Riverside. So now with 69 out of 84 laps completed here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, the lead continues to be held by Teo Fabi. 22.3 seconds behind is Bobby Rahal, and 3rd place is Mario Andretti. Those are the only 3 cars on the lead lap. Then Al Unser Sr. in car number 7.
Howdy Holmes there, going by Greg Leffler, putting a lap on Greg. Also like to recognize Gary Bettenhausen. We saw the car that Gary had qualified. As we go back and look at the leader, Teo Fabi, the car that Gary Bettenhausen had qualified. Herm Johnson dropped out early in the race. We commented we wanted to pick up on the story. Gary this weekend became the 1983 national champion for championship dirt cars. USAC championship dirt cars. They had a race this weekend. Chuck Gurney won it at the mile at Indianapolis on the fairgrounds there. The third win in a row for Gurney on that racetrack. Gary didn't finish, but he racked up enough points that he will be the champion for this season. Congratulations, Gary.
Well, we're glad you could join us for this number 2 part of our auto racing doubleheader on this Sunday afternoon. We're covering the IndyCar race at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and the leader, this man, Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy. Court radar warning 200 from Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio this afternoon. And we have completed 71 laps. The average speed of the race, a little more than 94 miles an hour. Teo Fabi is the leader. And here is Gary Lee in the pit area with Pat Patrick.
Pat Patrick, as a car owner, you've had very little to smile about this season. But right now, the STP number 20 is running in 5th position. That has to bring a grin to your face.
Well, we really should be in first position if we had our driver back instead of sitting up there in the air-conditioned suite during the commentary. We're not doing as good as I'd like to be, Gary. We only have 5 gallons of fuel left in our tanks, and we have 14 laps to go, and we're going to have to stop. Of course, I think everyone else is. It's going to be kind of I think it's going to be an interesting race here before it's all over with.
So it's still a toss-up with just over 10 laps to go.
As far as we're concerned, it is, so we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Pat Patrick standing by and watching.
And there is Teo Fabi, his lead over second place, Bobby Rahal, about 23.6 seconds right now. What about that, Gordy?
Well, it's very possible. Everybody could be getting short on fuel. It's been a pretty competitive race all day until just the last few laps here. You know, the first, second, and third places were running nose to tail there for quite a long time. But since Al Unser Jr. has fallen out of the race, Fabi's had it pretty well his way. And there's Sneva off the track. Sneva just spun off, trying to get back on. He got her straight. I don't know what he's doing right now. I don't think he does either, but there he comes. He's coming back on now.
Well, I was over in the S's yesterday afternoon watching practice, and Tom, quite frankly, kept the corner workers busy. He was having all kinds of problems getting through that area of the racetrack. As a matter of fact, the second time that the kart safety officials went to get him, he remarked to them, he said, well, I think I've got it right this time. But Tom has performed pretty well here in the race, and that's the only spin that we know of in the event so far this afternoon.
He really is only 1 lap down. He was running in 8th position, was a lap ahead of Howdy Holmes, who was in 9th position. Tom was the tail car among 5 that were 1 lap down. That driver right there, Kevin Cogan, was running directly in front of Tom Sneva, running in 8th position, also a lap down. You caught a quick glimpse of Danny Ongaias in the STP orange and blue number 20, which was running in 5th position.
And Gordy, we might also remark to the remark that Pat made. I'm sure you would rather be down there on the racetrack than up here in the air conditioning.
Well, most certainly I would. There's no question about that. I think I'm going to be back next year. You just have to see what the doctors say and how much therapy I have to go through this winter and can try and get back in shape. But I might not make the very first few races of the year, but when Indianapolis time comes, I can drive with 1 leg if I have to.
Tom Sneva from Paradise Valley, Arizona, formerly from the Pacific Northwest, but has moved to the Phoenix area recently and drives out of that particular hometown. Back in 1980, he started 8th and finished 11th here in Mid-Ohio. We asked him about some of the aspects of running a road course.
In addition to concentration on the car on the course, you're also looking at the marshals around the track warning you of track conditions. Is that difficult to remember they're out there to watch for them?
Well, it is, because you got your hands full, number one, but most of them I got to meet personally this weekend because they've all had to push me out of a sand pile or out of the grass, well, somewhere.
Well, Tom's doing all right now in that Texaco Star, car number 5, Tom the winner of the Indianapolis 500 in 1983, and also the winner of the 150-mile race on the oval at Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And still the only guy who's won more than once, although it looks like we may be headed for our first, or make that our second, double winner of the year. Everybody who's running in the top 3 positions on the lead lap right now has won at least once already this year. As a matter of fact, that is the exact total of each of them. Again, Behind the first three cars, as we watch Tom Seaver, running currently in 8th position is Teo Fabi, Bobby Rahal, and Mario Andretti.
And in 4th position, a lap down, is Al Unser Sr. We'll be back with more coverage from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in a moment with 73 of 84 laps complete. Well, here's a second-place competitor, Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio, just about 40 seconds behind Teo Fabi. But can you imagine where Bobby would be if he had not made 2 extra pit stops and had not experienced this fuel pickup problem?
Well, certainly he would be in the lead, because right now he's about 40 seconds behind the leader, Teo Fabi. But, Gordy, you got to believe that Teo is off the pace. He knows he's got a comfortable lead because of the radio communication.
Well, yes, he does. And like you said about Bobby Rahal, it takes more than 20 seconds to pit stop, and if he hadn't had to make these extra ones on account of a fuel pickup problem, the both of them would have been right there pretty close together, and we would have been seeing a good race right down to the end. It's still a good race for a road course race, but you got to watch this fuel at the end here. We still got 9 laps to go, and anything can happen. If they've had the boost turned up too much all day, a little more than they should have had at times, like when Al Unser Jr. and Fabi were running close together. If Fabi had the boost turned up a little too much, his fuel could be getting pretty close.
3 IndyCar wins, and they have all been on ESPN. 2 of them last year, one at Cleveland, one at Michigan International, and his win in the most recent race we covered on ESPN, Riverside, California. Bobby Rahal.
Well, in the pit stop situation, Teo Fabi, his longest time out on the track before pitting was before his first stop when he went 29 laps. He pitted on lap number 55, which means he's got to go further than he has at any other time yet today. That's the situation on Teo Fabi. We got a development on the race course.
Chris Neifel in car number 72 is running in 12th place. He is 5 laps down and has experienced a few problems this afternoon. But here's a guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time during the Michigan 500 on the last lap and got knocked out when Rick Mears hit the wall. It's been a tough year for Chris, but here this afternoon running in 12th position after qualifying good enough to start him in 8th position.
Well, he was running real good, I think, at the first part of the race, and I think something had to happen to the car because he's much more competitive than that. He's been brought up on the road courses, and he does very well on the road courses. He does better on the road courses, really, than he does on the oval. So I think you'll find that he's got a problem with his automobile.
It's been a colorful year for Chris Neifel. We saw him earlier in the season when the car was painted a very pale white, but his helmet had 20 different colors, count them, and various rings on it. Now he drives with a green helmet, a red driver suit, and blue gloves and shoes. And speaking of green, there's another green race car, and I guess they've certainly dispelled the theory that green is bad luck in a race car.
Teo Fabi leading the Escort Radar Warning 200, and he is 35 seconds ahead of Bobby Rahal and 52 seconds ahead of 3rd place Mario Andretti. Stay with us for the last few laps of this IndyCar race in Mid-Ohio. Out of the S's and into the chute, Mario Andretti in car number 3, running in 3rd position, about 52 seconds behind the leader Teo Fabi. But for Mario Andretti, he's going to pick up a few valuable points in the PPG IndyCar World Series.
Mario Andretti, as he goes down the chute, the last straightaway before going into Carousel. Here's about a 180-degree turn right here that leads onto the home stretch. 5 laps to go this time when Andretti comes down the start-finish line and crosses under starter Nick Fenoro's green flag. Andretti seems to be in pretty decent shape. His first pit stop, a car off course just in front of Mario, but only momentarily. We think it might have been Howdy Holmes. Andretti went 32 laps before he first pitted. Yes, it was Howdy Holmes. We saw him flash by. He only has to go 26 to come home and complete 84 laps. So Andretti should be in pretty good shape. Again, remember, Fabi has got to go about a half a lap further than what he did the very first time he was out to finish. Al Unser Sr., who runs in 3rd position, remember Andretti is 2nd, has really got it covered. He only has to go 23 laps. He pitted at lap number 61. He's gone 29 and 32 laps for each of his pit stops. So Al Unser Sr. among the first 3 in the lead lap looks to be in good shape. Fabi might be close to the edge, and Mario Andretti appears to be safe.
Well, one thing you want to remember, Larry, you never know how much fuel they had to put in the car on the last pit stop. They might not have had enough to have a full tank when they went out, so that's something you don't know.
And whether or not the driver has been, use the word fiddling with the boost control.
That's right, rather he's been playing with the boost control, but most of them at this time right now, I don't think they would have gained too much by really playing with the boost control.
Last time the Indy cars were here, back in 1980, this guy, Al Unser Sr., was the fastest qualifier. He started first, but dropped out with a suspension problem and finished in 13th place. He is now running fourth. And Tony Bettenhausen running right behind Al Unser Sr. on the racetrack. I happen to think of something. Al Unser Jr. coming into today's race was the only driver to have completed each race, and since he has dropped out, that means that no driver has completed every race this year.
And Tony Bettenhausen Jr., you see that bright blue and yellow number 10 as they go underneath. Roger Mears has been right behind Al Unser Sr. Really some pretty good racing there in the final stages. It's Al Unser Sr., Tony Bettenhausen, and Howdy Holmes going down the 170, 180 mile per hour backstretch. Al Unser Sr. has been pretty good on the road courses since the IndyCar sect turned to this type of racing really for the first time back in the late 1960s. He won 5 times and ranks third among the active drivers for most wins behind Mario and Rick Mears.
Well, Al got quite a lot of experience with running the Formula 5000, Larry. When they were running that series, Al done a lot of running, and that's where he picked it up. And Tony Bettenhausen recently has went to the driving school on a road course. I don't know if he's out in California or where, but it's really helped him tremendously because you can see right here when he's keeping up with Al right at this time, you know he's doing a lot better than he had been doing.
And they also had a flash fire at one point during the race here today, so they made a nice rebound.
Let's take a look at Al Unser Sr.'s performance on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series this year. He finished second in the Atlanta 200. He was second at the Indianapolis 500. Finished second in the Rex Mays 150. At one time, he was declared the winner, but the protest was given back to Tom Sneva. He finished first, was the winner at the Cleveland 500-kilometer race on the road course. Finished second at the Michigan 500. Then in the Elkhart Lake 200, he wound up in third place. At Pocono, Al Unser Sr. finished 11th. The California 500, he was also 11th. So a good, consistent performance this year for Al Unser Sr. that has him in the lead in the point standings at this point in the year.
He's also ranked third in terms of total number of laps led behind Teo Fabi, the guy who's leading this race, and Tom Sneva. He's second behind his son in the number of laps completed. He's also second in money winning. Tom Sneva, on the basis of the Indy 500 victory, is, of course, the leader in dollars won.
All right, 81 laps have been completed. We are 3 away from the finish. Teo Fabi, the leader, is moving through the chicane. We'll be back to see if he can win this 200-mile race just a moment from Lexington, Ohio. Well, Mario Andretti has passed Bobby Rahal and gone into second place. It appears again a pickup problem, fuel pickup problem for Bobby Rahal that's caused him to slow. Mario is now second and Rahal back to third place.
And they had Al Unser Sr. also in that group. Al's still running in fourth position. He's a lap down. He's been a lap down to the leader, Teo Fabi, for quite some time, and now he goes a lap down to Mario, and he's working on the course right now. And Al, there you see the yellow car going slow for a second there. He got a little high coming out of the carousel as Mario Andretti comes down the front stretch past the pit area into that first left-hand corner, now heads toward the chicane, heading due south at this point.
You could tell that was a trouble with Bobby Rahal when he just went by the front stretch here, that he's having a fuel pickup problem again. It just wasn't running.
So we're less than 2 laps from the finish now. We're on lap number 82. Teo Fabi on his way to victory here this afternoon, with Mario Andretti now running second and Bobby Rahal is third. We'll check on the progress of Teo Fabi Hill. He's in the carousel, and the interval is 40 seconds. He has a 40-second lead on Mario Andretti. So unless things really fall apart for Teo here in the late stages, he's going to win this race. He crosses the start finish line.
Something's happened to Teo Fabi. He just pulled down low on the inside. unless he's letting the slower cars go by and not taking a chance.
Well,
that was very possible.
Yeah, it could be because he did see the white flag displayed by Nick Bonoro, the official starter for CART, and it could be that he knew he was 40 seconds ahead, didn't want to contend with those other cars, and so he just pulled down to let them by. We'll see, though, here as he goes into the final lap.
I think that's what he did, guys. Looks like he just pulled down and let him go so he wouldn't have. I don't know, though.
Well,
he's not running all that quick.
He doesn't appear to be running as quickly as he was earlier, but don't forget he's only got about a half a lap to go before victory is his. He has about a 37-second lead now.
He'll get to a point. Now here's one of those real exciting corners on the racetrack. He'll get to a point as he goes through madness where he can almost coast home very gingerly. He's got a couple cars.
Two cars spun. He missed them all right.
Well, maybe
Rick Mears and Roger Mears both evidently got together here.
Maybe he sensed something, and that's the reason he slowed down to stay behind those two cars, because had he been up to speed and closer to those guys, he may have T-boned both of them.
Shades of A.J. Foyt winning the 1967 Indianapolis 500 when he said, I came around turn number 4 and something just told me to slow down.
Yep. So he has now moved through the chute and is headed for the carousel, and now just a few more yards really away from victory here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. He is in the carousel.
He's got it made now. He can coast to the finish.
Out of it, out of turn number 15, onto the straightaway, and double checkered flags displayed for Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy, the winner of the Escort Radar Warning 200 from Mid-Ohio, and he becomes the second repeat winner on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series for this year. He had a victory at Pocono and now on the road course here at Mid-Ohio.
And I suppose that he would have expected the road course victory to come first. He's been close so many times. And as we look at Mario Andretti heading for home base and a second place finish for the driver from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Rick and Roger got started again because here they come. No, that's Al. It's not Rick.
Oop. Well, here's what happened on the last lap when Teo Fabi perhaps sensed something going on in front of him, because Rick and Roger Mears both spun right in front of him.
And it looked like that Rick was on the outside. There's Tom Sneva going by on the lower right-hand side of your screen. It looked like Rick was on the outside, and maybe he touched Roger, or Roger had spun in front of Rick, and Rick just had to get on the binders. But there they are, side by side in tandem, and Teo, who was already at a reduced speed before he reached the area, just kind of steered around the high side and went on.
So he survived the shunt in front of him and now waves to the crowd gathered around this 2.4-mile road course at Mid-Ohio. They salute him as the winner of the race, and he acknowledges the thousands of race fans on hand for the activity here this afternoon. Teo Fabi, the winner in this Skoal Bandit, car number 33.
And he keeps pace with Al Unser Sr. in that drive toward the championship. This win might put him ahead of Tom Sneva, depending upon how the points break down. You get 20 points for first, 17 for second, and so on. But Tom Sneva did finish this race in the top 10 unofficially around 8th or 9th. This might propel Teo past Tom for second, but those are the only three guys now who really pick up any points for this afternoon's work.
Teo didn't run this circuit last year, but has won 2 races this year on the CART World Series trail. Perhaps we can call him the new kid in town. Here this afternoon at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, our winner circle interview brought to you by Castrol Motor Oil, engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines. Here's Gary Lee with our winner, Teo Fabi.
Right now, Teo is looking at the calluses on his hand. Congratulations, first of all. We had a chance to visit with you in Pocono in Victory Lane. It was your intent to chop down the lead and go for the championship. I understand now, unofficially, you've gained about 8 points on Al Unser Sr., so you're making the strides.
Well, I think we look very good for the championship if we keep finish the race.
It's a good omen, apparently, when you start second. You've started on the pole so many times this season. You've had trouble with pit stops. You've fallen back. You finished second. But when you won at Pocono, you started second on the grid, and you started second again today.
Well, next time we're going to win from the pole.
All right. Congratulations. Thank you, Teo.
Thank you.
And our congratulations to Teo Fabi, whose pit crew now pushes the car into the pit area. He has won the Escort Radar Warning 200 here at Mid-Ohio. You remember a few years ago, Johnny Rutherford gave Tim Richmond a lift. Here's Pancho Carter and Bill Alsop.
They go.
The celebration of Teo Fabi's win continues in victory lane here today. Again, Teo with about a 26-second win over Mario Andretti, and Bobby Rahal finished in third position. And Larry, your final thoughts on the race?
No caution flags. Pretty competitive, kind of an exciting race in this tight course. It was worth over $37,000 of the $244,000 purse to Teo. And as we have commented a couple of times, now we've got two-time winners.
And it was our pleasure to have in the broadcast booth with us this afternoon, Gordon Johncock. And Gordy, your final thoughts?
Well, I'd like to thank you fellows both. It's been a pleasure working with you, and for me it was sure a pleasure to see the STP Patrick Racing team finally finish a race. You know, after all year long we've had so many problems and haven't been able to finish. And another thing, I'd like to thank all my fans for all the cards and the letters and the telephone calls and everything that I've gotten since my injury at Michigan, and it sure helps you heal and makes you feel very good that you have a lot of fans around the country.
We'll be looking forward to your return to IndyCar racing just as soon as possible. Our thanks also to Gary Lee, who did his usual fine job covering the pits for us this afternoon. Well, our coverage of the Escort Radar 200 has been brought to you by Pontiac. Test drive a new Pontiac at your Pontiac dealer, because at Pontiac we build excitement. And by Timex, timekeeper to ESPN. Timex, we make technology beautiful. We review for you the top 10 finishers here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. The winner, Teo Fabi. Second place, Mario Andretti. Third was Bobby Rahal. Fourth, Al Unser Sr. And Danny and Gaius finished fifth. Sixth place went to Kevin Kogan. Seventh, Tom Sneva. Eighth was Howdy Holmes. Rick Mears finished ninth, and Pancho Carter was 10th. Those are the unofficial results. Thank you for joining us at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Once again, the winner, Teo Fabi. This is Bob Jenkins saying so long, everyone.